Good afternoon. Welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Slightly earlier show today. I've got rehearsals for the play, so I've got to be off early. But it's a big welcome as always to Supermac and John Gibson. How are you, lads?
We're all right, I think. Yeah.
Good to see you. And big day in the Newcastle United and Premier League calendar, of course. The fixtures are out. And first set of fixtures were stuck in there by Tom Dixon. Newcastle's first three matches of 23-24. Aston Villa at home, which has been confirmed as the first televised game of the season. 5:30 kickoff on the Saturday evening. Man City away. And then Liverpool at home. There's your first three mouth-watering fixtures for Eddie Howe's Champions League mags. Nottingham Forest on Boxing Day is another special one because Boxing Day, after we've all stuffed ourselves full of turkey and pulled the crackers, I think we all like to just stumble up to St James's Park after having another shandy and singing our hearts out for the lads rather than getting on a bus and sharing all of our, shall we say, Brussels sprout gases with everybody else. And the final month of the season, well, I'm quite happy with it. I've got to be perfectly honest. I always look at the first month. I always look at the last month. Burnley away, Brighton at home, Brentford away. Every game can be tough in the Premier League if you're not playing your best. But, I think if we'd reversed those fixtures and had those opening four games at the end of the season, I would have been a little bit more concerned. But hey, you've got to be in it to win it. Newcastle have proved they can fight with the big boys. I'm happy. Malcolm, are you?
It's a tough old start, but let the test begin right from the very beginning. Aston Villa are a much improved side, of course, under the management of Unai Emery. But we're at home. That's always an important factor. To start your season at home gives you that bit of an advantage. And it's followed by Manchester City and Liverpool. Well, you look through the whole fixture list and August, it's only 3 games, but it's the hardest month of the season without any shadow of a doubt. And for me, I always look at it that if you really go for it, and you come out, well, who knows? Newcastle could be above Manchester City come the end of August, going into September. They'll be above Liverpool as well. Fantastic. Absolutely great. And if this was under Steve Bruce, I'd be holding my head in my hands.
If it was under Steve Bruce, you'd be looking at the championship fixtures.
Probably, yes. And probably drop my head as well. But under Eddie Howe, everything has absolutely turned round. And we are in the Champions League. For heaven's sake, every time we go out in the field, there is nothing to be afraid of. Nothing at all. And let's finish August, go into September above Manchester City in the table. That would be great.
That's the way to look at it. Accentuate the positives on NUFC Matters. No time for negativity on this channel. Got to keep smiling. It's the summer. Looking ahead to a wonderful season. John, fixture list. It's always an exciting time, whether you're a fan or a journalist or an ex-player, isn't it?
Absolutely right. I mean, I'm elated to find myself above Manchester City after 3 games. My God, I thought this was the best club team in the world, and we're already ahead of them. Good on us. But if you look at the fixture list, absolutely. I mean, it is a tough old start on paper. You go beyond the 3 games of August, you've got Aston Villa, Man City, Liverpool, and then you've got Brighton away. So the first 4 are tough, in as much as they're all quality sides. But I'll tell you what, none of those sides will want to play Newcastle as early as they are. Villa don't want to start the season at Newcastle United. You can have a lot more easier start to a season than having to come up to Tyneside, who have just got in the Champions League, and it'll be like a bear pit. And the flags will be going, and the weather will be beautiful, and everybody will want to dove Villa because of what happened down at Villa Park. And then the next home game, Liverpool, My Jove, can we not wait for them after last season? I mean, the biggest travesty was they took 6 points out of us last season because they didn't deserve to win either match. So this is the chance to right a wrong there. It is going to be difficult. Man City away is, in my humble opinion, I think everybody's humble opinion, the hardest fixture in the Premier League for any club. Any club, going to Manchester City is the hardest game in the Premier League. But let's get rid of it early doors. Now, when you look at those first four fixtures, Villa, Man City, Liverpool, Brighton, and then you put in the Champions League fixtures, which are still to come, is it telling us that this is an epic season? I mean, you know, you start with those four, and then you've got goodness knows who in the Champions League. You're going to get a real legendary club, and they're all going to be quality. So it is going to be good. And as when I was talking to Malcolm earlier in the day today, he was saying, and it's absolutely right. If you start with a killer opening like that, it gets easier as the season goes on because you get the killer games out of the way, and it's going to get easier and easier. And I was having a smile with Malcolm when I was talking about it getting easier and easier, and say, well, they've given us a lovely Christmas. On the 16th, we're home to Fulham, and on the 23rd, we're away to Luton, to his clubs. So I'm looking forward to a very happy Christmas there by getting 6 points, and that's followed by Forest at home. So that's a good Christmas. But yes, it's hard. There's no question about that. But they're all hard. And as I stress, Villa won't find it easy to come to us. Liverpool won't find it easy to come to us. Brighton will remember they got tonked up here just before this season ended. So, you know, outside of Man City, and we did lead them 3-1 up here, you know, each side knows it's difficult to play Newcastle United. And that's great. That'll do for me.
Malcolm, is this the first time that all of your former clubs are in the Premier League at the same time?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, which is amazing. And as John said, that two of them are fixtures in December consecutively, Fulham and Luton. And that's Luton away. I'm not so sure I'll be going to that because the ground hasn't altered at all since I was playing there. And that was back in 1969. And they were talking then of going to a newly built stadium. And they're still talking about it.
I was going to say, in fairness to them, they're consistent. They're still talking about it, Malcolm.
Well, yeah. But, you know, 54 years later, for heaven's sake.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not easy, and I honestly do not know where the Premier League have said they have to spend £10 million on the popular side to come up to scratch for the Premier Division. On the other side, the main stand side, they've done nothing to it since I was there. So how that can be up to scratch, I really don't know. 10 million isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to cause all sorts of problems, and I just hope that they can overcome them and we can enjoy some football. But away sides do not like playing there. It seems to be a very enclosed pitch. There's a slope and a bit of bad weather, and we're playing them in December, and I can assure you the pitch is going to be a bit of a quagmire in December.
Seeing Hereford all over again.
No. It's a lovely sunny day, Steve. There's no need for that sort of language.
Invasion of the Parkers. No. Anyway, we said it was going to be positive. Just a quick one. A question from Geordie Toombalite, who says, why do we always seem to play Everton on a midweek? And he's right. We do always seem to play them on a Wednesday night. It's a crazy situation, isn't it? It's just the way the fixtures fall, John, I guess.
Yeah, it is. But it's amazing how things come up, isn't it? And you say, not that again. In Everton, Everton away always seems to be on a Wednesday night. But I always think a Wednesday night is a very good night to get 3 points, And Goodison gives you an ideal opportunity to do just that. I think it's going to be a fabulous season. If you can't get your appetite whetted by Villa, Man City, Liverpool, and Brighton, followed by the top sides in Europe, followed by a punt at winning the League Cup or the FA Cup, goodness gracious, isn't it fabulous? I mean, we are talking big deal. And I'm not looking at other people's fixtures that are going to be down at the bottom and saying, can we get more points in Luton? Can we get more points in Sheffield United? That's what we used to do. We used to look immediately at the 3 brought up from the Championship and say, can we finish above them? Now we just don't have to think like that. And that's
Yeah, no, you're right, mate.
Are you strangling somebody there, Steve?
It's behind me, I'm afraid. I'm having a bit of work done.
Oh, right. I thought Steve was strangling somebody.
Yeah, it'll only last a minute.
Only in films, John. Only in films. Stephen Kennedy says, so sorry to hear about John Hollands, one of my early heroes, along with Alan Ball. What are Miles and John's memories of John Hollands? And also sad news from a different part of the UK. And Gordon McQueen has passed away, who Tom Dixon describes as a good centre half. And Alan Little says, rest in peace, Gordon McQueen, a tough centre half. What are your memories of him, lads? Malcolm, you first.
Well, on Gordon McQueen, by heavens, he was a big lad. Oh, dear me. And he knew how to use his height as well. But he was a lovely lad. He really was. He always used to smile and say, I'm sorry, when he kicked you up in the air, which was very gentlemanly of him. But John Hollands, I played with John. He joined Arsenal when I was there. And he was one of those guys who could run all day. He arrived. He was sort of just going into his 30th year, but he would be up ahead of all the runners in a cross country or whatever it was that we were doing, and he always had this huge smile on his face, huge smile always, in training. In the dressing room, on the field, it didn't matter. He just loved the game. If you actually have a look, I think he played in total for 3 clubs, something in the region of about approaching 800 games, which is quite phenomenal. And he was so unbelievably fit, and the game just came very easy to him. And he just kept it simple and just kept playing it in the middle of the park. Terrific player and a really good teammate as well.
Yeah.
John, what about you? Any memories from the journalist side of things?
McQueen and Pallister were 2 great centre-half pairings at Man U. Quality. Tough guy, as Malcolm says, and he knew at close quarters playing McQueen. But a great guy with a good background of football. His daughter, as we well know, is a very well-known face on Sky Sports, Hayley, and she'll be decimated today. All our thoughts go out to Hayley and the rest of her family. Hollands, interesting, John Hollands, as Malcolm said, and he knows him as a teammate. The thing that sticks with me is the huge smile. He was a smiler. I mean, there's only Miggy Almiron got anywhere close to him as a smiler since. And Miggy's given him a good run for his money. Of course, John was the brother of the Newcastle United goalkeeper, Dave Hollands.
Dave Hollands, yeah.
Yeah, that was his brother. And one of the interesting things about the 2 brothers, remembering that they were brought up together at the same time in the same family, etc. One played for England. I think John was cap. One played for England, John Hollands, and the other one played for Wales. our old goalkeeper played for Wales, and it's not often it's because of having been born in England. I think it's because of ancestry. You know, your mother or your grandma
Right.
passed through Cardiff on a Wednesday afternoon, and you can play for Wales. And
right, because John went and managed Swansea, didn't he? So he sort of must have returned to the family seat.
I think yes. But it's a sad day for football because it's two of the great names of the past that have left us. But they've left us with fond memories, and it was a shame for Gordon near the end because he was suffering badly, I think, with dementia, etc. The curse that has hit old Newcastle United players, currently John Tudor and Tommy Cassidy. Great sadness, but remembered with fond memories.
Yeah, our thoughts, as the lads have said, with their families. Okay, moving on. Can you ask, this is an interesting one. I did bring this up before we came on air. The Mitchell brothers say, can you ask Malcolm what he made of Craig Bellamy criticising him on a podcast recently about when he did the Three Legends? He said they tore down the players and damaged Newcastle United and Sunderland and Middlesbrough with negativity.
What a load of old toss. It's tosh, absolute tosh. I can't believe that Craig, and good heavens, the last programme we did was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
What is he digging this up now for? And possibly because, I gave some stick to Craig Bellamy. I thought that he was a player that he could have put more into his career than he did. I felt that there was more inside of him than was actually getting out, and all three clubs, they actually welcomed us. Not so much Newcastle, but certainly Middlesbrough and Sunderland, they welcomed us. They couldn't do enough for us, with us, and they knew that what we weren't really criticising. We were giving an honest opinion, but there was always that comical angle to everything. And so we were taking the mickey, we were taking the pee in a lot of the cases, and the clubs recognised that, and so they didn't take us too, let's say, over seriously, and they were more than happy to work with us, and we appreciated that very much. So what Craig Bellamy is actually going on about, I really don't know, because we were always welcome, certainly with Borough and Sunderland, and indeed with Hartlepool and Darlington. We were always welcome at all times with the clubs.
Yeah, I mean, criticism's part of being a footballer, John. You happily take the plaudits, don't you? But I mean, I used, like everybody else, I used to listen to the Three Legends. I used to love it. I mean, we all used to cringe with Gatesy, and we used to laugh at the way Bernie used to wind Malcolm up. But as black and white as, we all used to love hearing Malcolm giving them it back twofold, you know. So it was a great combination. I mean, I was lucky enough to be on that show a few times, and we always made to feel welcome. But yeah, criticism, John. We don't always give everybody a rough deal on here. Just ask Malcolm about the ASM, and away he goes.
Yeah, now, don't bring that subject up.
10 years time when he's on a podcast.
Unless you've got an extension to the programme, don't bring that up.
I tell you what, he hasn't had a bad game in 3 weeks, you know.
I know he hasn't. But the interesting thing with Craig, bless him, and I knew Craig quite well when he played for Newcastle. The interesting thing is you could cause trouble in them house. I mean, you look at, he talks about criticism, and Malcolm mightn't have given the clubs a fair crack at the whip. I mean, him with Alan Shearer, Craig Bellamy famously with Graham Souness, the business at Liverpool when he was, hit somebody with a golf club. I mean, there's been a mountain of things that Craig Bellamy got involved with as a player, and we didn't know he was so touchy. And the one thing I always put it down to with Craig when he was having a dip was he needed that fire in his belly to put on performances, and he was basically a very good player. Although I agree with what Malcolm said, that always looked to have a bit more than he actually achieved. But he was a fiery striker at Newcastle. Missed a lot of goals initially. We'll always love him with the Champions League coming up for us this coming season. We'll always love him for that winner at Feyenoord, if you remember, Steve. When we played and we got through the group stage with a 90th minute winner at Feyenoord, and it was Craig Bellamy that scored it. But all of a sudden he's become a reformed character, and he's an assistant manager to company at Burnley. So all of a sudden he's turned out to be Cliff Richard when he used to be what's good.
There we go. Let's hope that doesn't start a tit for tat anyway. I'm sure it won't, but that's cleared that up. And never say we don't ask the difficult questions on here. Tom Dixon, let's move on to football again. NUFC retained list is out. 1 year extension for Matt Ritchie. Paul Dummett and Lawrence Carrius offered new deals. Kieran Clark and Matty Longstaff released. Obviously, with regards to Matty Longstaff, they will see him through his recovery before he leaves the club. But no great surprises on there, Mal?
No, not really. Even though Kieran Clark, he's actually a current international, isn't he?
Yeah.
So's Jeff Hendrick, and what's that tell you?
Sure, I know.
Legend.
But I'm not surprised on Kieran Clark, but I really do think Matty Longstaff has been rather unfortunate in all of this, and particularly to have such a nasty injury that he's suffering now, which is going to go beyond the end of his contract. And I understand that Newcastle are being fair to him, and that they are continuing to ensure that he gets back to fitness as quickly as possible, and they're giving him all possible help and assistance. I am just surprised because there was one stage where Matty Longstaff, it looked like he was the one that was going to go on and make a success of himself, and that Sean would fall by the wayside. And then all of a sudden that's reversed, and it seemed to reverse with Eddie Howe coming into the club. And I don't think that really Eddie Howe, he never got to see Matty play in the first team. So he will do very, very well, particularly if he goes into the Championship once he's fit, goes into the Championship, gets a good couple of seasons playing on a regular basis under his belt, and he'll be back in the Premiership. Of that, I have no doubt.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, when I look at the retained list overall, there's no major surprises. Of course there's not, because the retained list isn't about who's available for transfer, because Ryan Fraser's not on there. Would the goalkeepers be available for transfer? Would Lascelles? Would this? Would that? Would the other? They're not in because they've got contracts. There's no mention in there, for example, if Jeff Hendrick and Isaac Hayden, because they've got contracts. So the retained list just tells you who's free and who's got an extra deal. So none of the real meat in this sandwich hasn't been revealed. I mean, at first glance, you would say that, the fact that there's an extra year being given to Gillespie and to Ritchie and one offered to Dummett, you could, if you like, be mildly surprised, because I would ask you a follow-up question to that. How many games do you think Gillespie, Ritchie and Dummett will play in the first team this coming season? And I bet all three of them you can count on one hand. how many games they will start. Certainly in the Premier League, they might get starts in the in one of the domestic cups, but they're not. It just shows it's a squad game, not a team game, and therefore it's not about the first team. I mean, Gillespie, for example, would be a major surprise, but I know he's well thought of as a good guy. And the idea is they've got to have somebody to be the fourth goalkeeper, because you can't just have three these days. You've got to have four senior goalkeepers, and the fourth one's got to be willing to sit there knowing that his chances of appearing are going to be very, very, very slight. I mean, if you bear in mind, Gillespie got a medal in the League Cup final because he was cover goalkeeper in the League Cup final at Wembley when Carriers played. So you could look at the Newcastle goalkeeping situation and say, if it works out ideally, Pope will be number one, Dubrovka and Stein be number two, Carriers will be number three because he's been offered that contract, may turn it down, and Gillespie would be number four because Darlow will be the one to leave for certain. He wants first team football. He did terrific at Hull on loan. Hull want them back, but the likelihood is he'll go to Middlesbrough because Michael Carrick is without a goalkeeper because his goalkeeper last season was on loan from Man City. So he's without a goalkeeper and he's made Darlow his number one target. And that call completely because he's just moving down the road from here, isn't he? And you know, Middlesbrough could well be promoted, having made the playoffs, be promoted this season. So I'd expect him to go. Richie and Dominic, they're not going to feature first team starts in the Premier League. Look how many first team starts they got in the Premier League last season. But Eddie now puts great. By the way, is somebody dying? Sorry? I can't hear you, Malcolm. Is somebody dying?
I'll put him on mute. It sounds like Craig Bellamy's coming through with a chainsaw.
I think you could well be right there. Well, and I think he's done a runner there on purpose.
It takes us back to the happy memories in those early days when the dog used to bark, John. Do you remember?
And the dog used to take him for a walk in the middle of the programme, I think, at one time. I think Richie, Lascelles, Dummett, and to a certain extent Gillespie, they're there because of what they bring to the dressing room, to be the right sort of characters, to accept the position in the pecking order, and you need a decent-sized squad. Because I'll repeat, Gillespie won't play in the Premier League this coming season. Richie will be lucky if he gets a start in the Premier League. Same to Dummett. But they're still around.
Yeah. Some of the comments.
They're still around, but Malcolm isn't, of course.
Well, I'm watching him in the green room. I didn't want to do this is going to be like that program, Who Lives in a House Like This, because Malcolm's having to take his computer around the house. I'll wait till he gets settled. I'll bring him back in. And as always, the chat goes mental when something like this happens. There's here we go. Is that an aeroplane? Says Tom Dixon. Mike Stewart says, is there a lightsaber fight going on there in Malcolm's house? There goes Malcolm's partition wall. Says Chris Banks. So plenty of humour in the chat. Whilst Malcolm gets settled, we'll go over the ad. Big up to the Dodgy Dave as well. Good to see you in the chat, mate. Big up Tranmere Rovers. Yes, we've had some good games down there. Dave, I was down there for the 6-6, which was Newcastle United. In fact, it was the first live televised game. How many hat-tricks were in that game, Dave? Can you remember? And who scored them? Answer that before the end of the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and friends. The class of 84 is on at the Town Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Town Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000. Yeah, Dodgy Dave, I was down there, mate. That Tranmere game was fascinating. Malcolm's back. It wasn't Craig Bellamy with a chainsaw. All good, Malcolm? Yes. Has he got? Yeah, he's got something. I muted him before to stop that. Now he's coming through. Yeah, all good, Malcolm. Yeah, all good.
Yes. Yeah. There's still a little bit of a racket going on, but it can't be helped because they're on the roof.
So as long as they don't parachute in on top of you, Malcolm, we'll be all right.
No, I think I'm quite safe from that, John.
Okay, good stuff. Second half of the show then. Still lots to talk about and lots of comments and questions coming in. I did like this from Alan Little. He says, I can hear the moans from Klopp already about playing us so early. It's too hot. It's been moved for TV, etc. So, yes, get your excuses in early, Jurgen. Any truth that we're in for Maddison? Spurs have just had a bid rejected, trying to grab Maddison and Barnes for 50 million with a low ball offer, says Darren. So, John, this is your department. What are you hearing on the transfer front? And whilst we're talking about Maddison, let's also talk about another player that we're being heavily linked with at the minute, and that is Barella. A midfielder who, as BT says, looming over Inter, 275 million euros emergency loan with a reported interest rate of 10% and losses last season of 140 million. Should we set our fee for Barella at less than the reported 50 million pounds? So, yeah, interesting times. Transfer windows open. What do you make of all this, John? What are you hearing?
Well, what I'm hearing is that they're the two number one targets for Newcastle. Above everything else, they want two midfield players. Yes, if it comes up and they can get a left back, they'll grab him. If they can get a right-sided centre-half, they'll grab him. If they can get an attacker, they'll grab him. But if they can only get two blue-chip players and the rest done on clever deals, the blue chip players would be a defensive midfielder and attacking midfielder, and the number one on the pecking order there is the Italian boy to be the defensive midfield player and Maddison to be the attacking midfield player. The idea being, and the Italian lad can score goals as well, but a bit like Bruno, an all-round player. The idea being that he can sit, but will be much more visible, much more around the park than Shelby when he's sat in front of the back four. But this Italian lad would do that. That would allow Bruno to get further forward, which he is very, very keen to do, rather than play defensive. He wants to get in, get round the edge of the box and finish. And Maddison remains the number one they want as the attacking midfielder. So they are the two big guys we are chasing. Of course, other people become available and are taken. And we will try to sign other players. But how, rather than get 5 players at 10 million apiece, that'll help to boost the squad, once 2 big blue chip players that he thinks will help in the middle of the field, where numerically we were very down. I mean, the last game of the season, we actually had a player winger in the middle of the park, and Anthony Gordon, didn't we? Because Willock was out, Joe Linton was out, and it was Sean Longstaff was out. And we just had Bruno know how to play. So we've only got 4 midfielders for 3 positions. So the word coming out of Newcastle United is that 2 midfielders, defensive and attacking, is the priority. And those 2 names are very high up on the shopping list.
Mal, it's exciting times, this transfer window. Newcastle United, will have money to spend again. For me, Maddison has been my number one choice. I am getting a bit bored with it. I've got to be honest. We're into another window now, and you just wonder, is he that keen to come? Has it just been Newcastle playing the patience game like they did with Botman? And Barella is, I've got to be honest, I mean, I speak to people who watch this kind of, that level of football, that kind of football all the time, and they rate this guy highly. And they think that if Newcastle could get him, that would be up there with, it's a marquee signing.
Yeah, and Inter have had an extremely good season this year. A very good season, and so you're getting a player who's on a bit of a high, and it's quite the opposite with Maddison. They've just been relegated, Leicester, and for a whole host of reasons, I am not keen at all for taking a player from a relegated side. One of the reasons is that his fitness will be way down, which tends to happen when clubs get relegated. And close to relegation was Everton. And so you look at Gordon and you can see that he hasn't got the physical strength that you would expect. He hasn't got the fitness, and he's going to have to work hard if ever he's going to get a regular spot in the first team. He's got to do an awful lot, not just to improve his game, but to improve his own physicality. And I just have the feeling that you could get the same situation with Maddison. And I was scratching my head when Leicester came to St James Park right at the end of the season, and Maddison was on the bench. Now, what was all that about? Because with the situation that they were in, they were desperately trying to avoid relegation. Well, Maddison's not good enough for that. It causes big question marks for me.
I think the interesting thing here, and who knows what's going to happen, it is, as Steve said when he was getting a bit bored with it, it's something that's gone on for a long time. Newcastle are known for their persistence in chasing players, as you talk about Botman, you talk about Isak, where they were in for a player. And this is what impresses the player, that Newcastle don't go away. They stay there and say, right, we'll go for you again. We'll go for you again. The player says, crikey me, And what happened with Leicester in the past is that they thought they were better than they are. They didn't think they were suddenly going to go into a relegation position. They were forced to get rid of a couple of players to get a couple of quid in. They got rid of Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, and the midfield player that went with Chelsea or whatever. But they wouldn't let. They saw Maddison as the crown and the jewel, and they wouldn't let him go. He was on a 2-year still to go, etc. In his contract, they wouldn't let him go because they thought he could keep them as a good mid-table side with a chance in the domestic cups. He then got into an injury situation. He is now on the last year of his contract. Apart from them going down, if they don't sell him now, they won't be able to sell him at all. He'll go on a free at the end of next season. So, and they've gone down. So they're saying, yes, Tielemans, we've had to let go on a free. They don't want that to happen to Maddison. They've got Maddison and Barnes to sell. The amazing thing, and Malcolm was right when he was on about what happened when they played up here. They not only left Maddison out, if you remember, they left Harvey Barnes out. The two best players didn't play. And you know why? And it was quite ludicrous. Smith packed their side with just defensive crunches to come up here and get a point and then win at home on the last couple of games at home. And they got a point against all the odds up here. They were massacred by us. They almost got 3 points with a great save by Pope at the end.
Didn't they? Yeah, but, right to the death.
Aye. But, you know, they come up here for a point when really they needed 3 points. And he thought they'll then win at home, etc. They got the point up here, but it boomeranged on them down there. And I take again the point Malcolm says about players who are relegated, but we are clinging on to hope. If we do go for Maddison, etc., is we took Nick Pope after he was relegated with Burnley, and he's been the outstanding guy this season. Well, one of the many outstanding guys this season. But
he's a goalkeeper though, John, and I think that
but his fitness and reflexes,
types of fitness.
His fitness and reflexes have been absolutely terrific. And
yes,
if you are to come, and get up to Newcastle United pace, if you like, because we demand so much more of players physically, because we're front foot, we're high press. You've got to be physically fit. But where Gordon really suffered was coming in January when he wasn't fit at Everton, and you have no time to get fit in January because you're straight in and playing. Here, if Maddison comes, and hopefully this will benefit Gordon, they'll get a full pre-season under the Eddie Howe way of getting fit. They'll have that under the belt by the time we kick off against Aston Villa. So hopefully that will help. But it'll be interesting. On ability-wise, I think Maddison's as good as they come on sheer God-given ability. And the other lad, the Italian lad, is very interesting. As Malcolm said, Inter Milan, and Malcolm knows of Inter Milan because he lived over there and his daughter's a big fan. But they've not only just played in the Champions League final, but they won the 2 domestic cups. Yeah. And this fella who's got 30-odd caps for Italy is terrific. Now, we're told Inter Milan do not want to sell him because they realise that you're knocking the end out of their side if he goes. But they could well be in a position where they can't afford to keep him because of the climate, the financial climate they're in. And what we've got to remember is that Serie A isn't what it used to be. If you were in Serie A in the old days when John Charles played there and Jimmy Greaves did and Dennis Law did and further on Gaza, etc., they were the number 1 league in Europe. They're now behind the Premier League, they're behind La Liga, they're behind the Bundesliga. They're only the 4th now. So they normally take our reject. When people are finished here, like Zeko and the lad from Chelsea, Lukaku, they end up going there and getting some more life. And you know, Chris Smalling went there and has got new life under Mourinho at Roma. It'll be difficult for them. They want to hold on to him because he's the basis of their side. But we don't know that they can, and that's where Newcastle are like a Rottweiler, aren't they? Once they get their teeth into your trouser leg, they don't let go.
Yeah, good points, lad. Good points. Lots of questions coming in. I've got a couple more that I want to go for. Cormax's Steve asked Malcolm who he's going to pick on when Maximin leaves in the summer. He doesn't pick on ASM, man. He gives an honest opinion. He gives his own opinion. But anyone who underperforms, Malcolm, you know, we're always fair. I think with people out here.
But why would he be leaving in the summer if he's such a good player?
I don't know whether he's going to leave. You know, I'm still got a mixed opinion on that.
But my point is, you know, there are so many people who think that he will be leaving.
Yeah, got you.
So why, if he is such a good player? And you know, and I come back to these same two things. How many goals have you scored? How many goals have you made? Simple as that. And his numbers they're not really good enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Change your subject, Steve. Now, come on.
I'm going to move on quickly.
Yes,
I'm looking at the next question. Do you think the Sir Bobby Robson team that qualified for the Champions League and was in the running for the Premier League title is often overlooked for the entertainers? It was an amazing team and a squad with a midfield of Jermaine Jenas, Gary Speed, Rob Lee, and Nobby Solano. It's a great question, John.
It's a fabulous question because they are by far and away the best two sides we have had in the modern day. And I would really go, and I would include, this is harsh, and I apologize to all my dear friends that were on the side, but they were better, more attractive sides than the side that won the Fairs Cup. If you're brutally truthful about it, they weren't as successful having got a trophy, but you could say we won the Fairs Cup, but we were always about 9th or 10th in the league. Under the entertainers had two successive runners-up finishes in the Premier League, which takes some doing, and Bobby had a 3rd and 4th in the Premier League. So in the Premier League, they're the best two sides we've had since the 50s. And there's only a hair's breadth between the pair of them. And there were two totally different sides in terms of personnel, with the obvious exception of dear old Alan Shearer bridging the gap between the two. And when you think of near misses, guys, and as a Newcastle United fan all my life and will remain so for the rest of my time, my greatest sadness is that Bobby Robson didn't follow Kevin Keegan, because that was on at the time. John Hall had gone out to interview Bobby for the Newcastle job. Unfortunately, a couple of other directors were interviewing Kenny Dalglish at the same time. And I think Bobby felt that if half the board wanted somebody else, he had a problem before he even started. And he didn't come, and he used the excuse, I want to be loyal to Barcelona. And Barcelona were loyal to him because they gave him the pedal and kicked him upstairs and brought Van Gaal in. But if we lost huge ground between Kevin Keegan and when Bobby come, and we really started from the bottom again. We were a side going to be relegated when Bobby come in and saved us, and we went up the third top. But just think, if Bobby, who would have been that significant few years younger as well, so he could have lasted longer, if Bobby had followed Kevin Keegan, which is what was being talked about, Newcastle's whole future might have been very, very different from what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see the sense in what you're saying there, John. Yeah, it would have been quite different.
Yeah. And this is the best chance, Malcolm, that we've had since those days.
Yes, it is.
The best chance we've had since those days.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yes, and the manager has got better backing than there's ever been before now.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Darren, we did discuss the Bellamy interview a little bit earlier on here. He says, anyone see Bellamy's new interview on a podcast talking about the training of Sir Bobby Robson? He says, how tough it was, etc. Good interview, and his fallout with Graham Souness, etc. I'll have to watch this. I think it sounds like an interesting interview. So we'll have to maybe stick that out and give it a listen. JJ says, could ASM not go as part of the Inter deal? So we only pay Inter 20 if they want 70 million. He has been linked, John, hasn't he, with them?
It's the other Milan, I think he was linked with, AC.
Oh, AC, okay.
AC Milan. But Yeah, if he wants to go and make it easier, that's fine. It is an interesting one because forget about his merits and whether he's good enough or not. Forget that. Just the signals put out by both Newcastle United and him are totally confusing. It's at one time it looks as if he's going, then looks as if he's staying, then he's going again. It looked as if he was saying his long goodbyes the other week. And when he was saying, "Remember me," and "Remember I was here when nobody else was," and then just in the last 48 hours, he's put out some statement saying he wants to stay at Newcastle. So the fiddler's elbow didn't go up and down as much as that. So you completely always get the information, which I know what Newcastle are doing about. They're just wonderful to everybody, aren't they? They don't want anybody to go. They didn't want Chris Wood and John Joe Shelby to go, but they ordered the taxi quick enough. It's the way football's run. But it's going to be interesting this summer. It's going to be interesting.
Sure, it's always best to make a parting of the ways. To be done in really good style.
Yeah.
And
Eddie Howe does that.
Yes, he does, and he does it cleverly.
And the only thing out of that, guys, that makes you wonder, he is such a nice guy on the surface. I think he's a tough guy. Let's not get carried away that he's Alad Jones and he's going to be in the choir on Sunday singing with a white robe on, because he isn't. He's got a toughness to him, but it makes you think, crikey me, what must Ryan Fraser have done to get banished out of the whole building and sent down to the academy, which is what happened. He's got to have committed in the eyes of Eddie a real sin and to be treated in that way. But that, I think, and you can see it happening, and that, I think, is something that Eddie Howe has got about him.
But he's had previous with Eddie Howe, John, and that may well have had an impact on Eddie Howe as to how he dealt with Ryan Fraser this time around.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. The whole summer is going to be interesting, and it's all right saying you want guys to go. For example, the taxi standing outside the St. James's Park now with the engine running, and either Jeff Hendrick, Isaac Hayden, or Ryan Fraser can have it any second they want, as far as the club's concerned. Not being nasty about those other two guys, just the time is up here. But it's all right, the time being up. If they're sitting on a contract for good dough and they're willing to sit on it and not worry about playing too much, then you cannot get rid of them.
What about ASM as a make weight for Rice? Arsenal are playing hardball apparently, and ASM could be a good fit at West Ham.
I think that financially, Steve, not even with him as make weight, it's going to be way, way more expensive than Newcastle's prepared to pay.
That wasn't me. Maybe Wayne asked the question, John, not me. I just read them out.
It's the smile on your face, though, Steve, that gives you away. You're enjoying yourself, mate. Yeah. We can't get Rice, no. The money for them is too much and the wages are too much. Yes, we've got Champions League, same as Arsenal, etc., but no, I don't think there's any chance of Rice ending up at St. James's.
No, and please, everybody, you must remember that we are quite limited under the fair
financial fair play rule.
That we are much more limited than any of the clubs around us, and so we have to keep building up season after season. We'll sooner or later get there, and we'll be challenging in every respect, financially as well. But just at the moment, not enough time has passed, and we're still suffering the effects of how Mike Ashley left the club.
Yeah, no, it's a good point as well, Malcolm. Really good point. Bobby Robson was one of the toughest guys in football. Just asked John Carver. If Dubravka and Darlow leave in the summer, what about Meslier as a backup to Pope on loan from Leeds as cover? Lots of names being linked. Fraser Foster's another one that's been linked with a potential move back home to Newcastle. I mean, it's a guessing game until we know who's leaving, John.
It is, because, I mean, if I was a betting man, and it is a guessing game, and it's a guessing game for Newcastle, but if I'm a betting man, I think Dubravka would probably stay in, Dollar would definitely go. But you could have a situation where Dubravka goes and Karius says no to his contract, and then you're really down on your keepers, because you've got Pope is a bookend on your left side, and you've got Gillespie as a bookend on the right side, but you're missing the two in the middle. I mean, the idea of Messina, and on a good day he can look a good goalkeeper, but on a bad day, did you see some of the goals he shipped at Leeds? Dear me. I mean, no, I mean, I'd rather pull my teeth out with a pair of pliers on the front lawn than necessarily try to bring him to the club.
Barry, you must have a lot of money. Alan Thompson, Jeff Hendricks is off to Japan, as far away as possible. Is that far enough, Alan? I saw him score, by the way. I've mentioned it a few times. Barry Hogan says, guys, do you think we will ever have the wage budget to match City? It's going to take time to catch up, John, isn't it? The financial amount.
Yeah, it's going to take an awful long time. It's took City a long time. When you think how long Pep's been here, and it started with the Abu Dhabi guys in about, 2008 or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, that says, we will.
15 years ago, John.
We will be the next City, the next Manchester City. But it could take 10 years or 12 years. It took them that long. Yeah. But we will get there eventually. I mean, they're the best club side in the world at the moment, and they've just done the treble, and they're an absolute joy to watch. But they've also just won their first Champions League, and all that time since the Abu Dhabi people moved in, the Champions League has been won by Liverpool and by Chelsea, etc., and they have just done it now. It doesn't come easy. They were winning. They won 5 out of 6 Premier Leagues before they got to winning the Champions League. So it does take time. We will get there, but it's stepping stones. And the first stepping stone is win a trophy. Whatever that trophy is, win a trophy. That's the first stepping stone. Get the monkey off the back where, you're quoting how many years it is. 27, 55, 69. That's emblazoned on my heart. I keep giving those figures every time I speak to any Newcastle fan, because it's the last time we won. So let's have a stepping stone and get that off our back. Now, if it's not going to be the Premier League and the Champions League, and by the way, I hope it isn't them, because they're not going to be next season. They might be the season after, but I would like to win something next season. And, let's win one of the 2 domestic trophies next season. We want to get that off our back, that business of not having had a trophy. Then you take your next step, and then you follow that up with your next. We will get there, but please let us win a trophy as soon as possible. And that was the one disappointment of this season, was the League Cup final coming at the wrong time. Because had that come at the right time, we would have turned over Manchester United. It came just at the wrong time. But let's get a trophy.
Yeah, Malcolm, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yes. And, let's get a trophy in the bag. I think it would be amazing as to the difference it makes to players within themselves. Get that medal as a team, and then all things become possible.
Yeah, that's it's great positive way to start the show, positive way to end the show tonight. Been fantastic to as always catch up with the lads and chat about Newcastle United. Who said the summer was boring, lads? There's always something. Sorry I didn't get to all of your questions. We got through most of them. Just want to say a big thank you to all the subscribers, because we've hit another landmark today.
Absolutely.
51,000 lads, 51,000. Malcolm must have thought it was the end of the show. He didn't realise we had a little surprise. He's disappeared.
I think you must have done. I didn't realise you were such a good dancer, Steve. You look great on there, giving it the old Humpty Dumpty.
Listen, while you're there, John, I just want to ask you about this because this is probably the last time I'll speak about it this week. I did talk to you at the top of the show in the green room about the badge. This is the furore that everyone's been going on about, John. Newcastle United on the badge, and you can probably just see there. We've highlighted where the issue is, if you like, but it's clearly a stitch, John. There's an issue with a stitch, I think, on some of the tops.
Yes. I mean, yes. If you want to be pedantic, you can say it's unfortunate. It looks as if it's a double T instead of an IT there. That's unfortunate, but hey, it's the right badge, and it's the right owners, and it's the right manager, and it's the right coaches, and it's the right players. So if we get something very small wrong, I'll settle for that. We could have the right wording perfectly on there and still have Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce and Joselu and all the rest of the players that we've forgotten about very conveniently. So if that's the price it's got to pay, I'll pay it.
He's off to Real Madrid, Joselu, but that's for another show. Just get a felt tip pen and add the bar at the bottom of the eyes, as to coin a phrase. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. To coin a phrase. Sorry, I never got your question. Maybe stick it in next week. We've got plenty of shows to cover the Champions League. Come back in with that question early doors next Thursday. Congratulations to everyone at NUFC Matters. It's been a big ride. We are now officially, let's say, 1,500 away from getting our full attendance on this channel. That would be great to get it up to 52,500. It would be fantastic.
Well worked, Steve. I know how much you've put into it to make the whole lot go as well as it has gone, and terrific to know we're going in the right direction and that we can hold hands with Newcastle United and we'll both take off. That's good news.
Listen, John, been a fantastic show. Thanks to you. Thanks to Malcolm. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care.
Take care, big man. Bye-bye, mate.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.